what is pattern recognition. So it is being called with different names like machine learning, deep learning. So many things are there. So everything connects to pattern recognition. So I'm going to give a very much space about the machine learning and deep learning concepts, which will be useful for you for your projects and if for further job pursuit also. Okay, because you people are in medical electronics department, there is so much of machine learning and data science tasks to be done with medical electronics and medical imaging. Okay, so rightly we'll see first of all what is a data and how it can be classified linearly separable and linearly not separable data. So that and all we have to see, and then to understand about ANN, artificial neural networks. Before going to artificial neural networks itself, we need to know what is by supervised learning and unsupervised learning. Okay, so those things we need to study, and I will explain all those things. And a simple back propagation neural network. I'm going to introduce some formulas also. So as much as possible, I have limited the mathematics. Why? Because totally, if I am delivering the lecture without mathematics, also it seems to be somewhat very non-technical. So some mathematical formulas I have included to understand about the basic backpropagation neural network, and we have some discussion session after that. And that is what is your machine learning basics you are going to study. After that, we will go for deep learning, that is convolutional neural networks. I will also say what is the difference between machine learning and deep learning, how the things have evolved. And rightly, we will see what are all the popular CNN models. Okay, so when we study the different layers in CNN, you can connect your knowledge with the familiar CNN models also, like ResNet, AlexNet, which are being used for multiple tasks nowadays, right from medical electronics to simple data classification tasks. They are using popular convolutional neural networks. And when you go for a project perspective, as a beginner, what you have to bother first is if you do a project in signal processing or image processing, in whatever field it may be, okay, connected to medical electronics or any other field, the first thing you have to look at is the database. That is the first thing to bother I have given. So database, what is the database available? Suppose I'm taking some segmentation task. For that, the original image should be there and segmented output should be there. So we can train the network by using the appropriate database only. So some people, particularly some students, come to me and say that they want to do image processing project and they will create their own database. No, it is not possible. So gold standard databases are almost available for most of the applications. So we have to see the proper database from online. We have to choose the proper database and we have to execute the work. And then some little coding in Python also we'll see. Okay. So some people who are not interested in coding in Python and all, we are not going to very elaborate coding technologies and all. So what is required for machine learning and image processing, that only we are going to see. And of course, we'll see what are the different Python libraries, and two small projects we'll see. One is CNN for segmentation, CNN for classification of MNIST dataset we will see, and another one CNN for segmentation of optical disc and cup in fundus images. So those two projects we will see if time permits, and we can go into the lecture. That is, the major constituents of the pattern recognition include classifiers like ANN, CNN, and SVM. As I told you, ANN is artificial neural networks and CNN is convolutional neural networks. So this is connected to deep learning. So we have limited layers and limited number of features for learning. That is done in olden days. Some 5 years before we are stuck with ANN, and we have been doing classification tasks with artificial neural networks. Nowadays, convolutional neural networks is very popular, and we are doing with more layers and more feature extraction. And SVM also connects to machine learning. So support vector machines, we'll see what it is, and we have clustering. So just to justify the topic of pattern recognition, I have put everything in order. So particularly what we are going to concentrate today is artificial neural networks and convolutional neural networks. We are going to have the interest today. And what are the steps in all these pattern recognition or classification tasks is, we have pre-processing. What is by pre-processing? I think all are able to hear me. Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We are able to hear you, sir.
Okay. Because when I am seeing the PowerPoint, I'm only able to see my PowerPoint. I'm not seeing the background as we see in Zoom. Okay, so I'm not getting a feel of class. Okay, fine, whatever it is. So there are different steps like pre-processing. What is by pre-processing? Suppose you get some vegetables for cooking. First you wash the vegetable and then you cut the vegetables. Likewise, you make the image or whatever type of data, the data that is available in the nature. I told that the data are available in standard databases. Even though the standard databases give the data, so they have to be first cleaned. If it is an Excel data also, there will be some missing values, outliers. So missing values in the sense some of the cells may be not present. So those values how to be treated. So those are the major challenges in data pre-processing. Coming to image processing, in image processing field, if you see also, the image may be over dark or over bright. So you have to do histogram equalization. So that is pre-processing. And after that, feature extraction and going to classification. So what is by feature extraction is nothing but, suppose you want to buy a mobile phone. So what you will see? So what is the capacity of the internal memory? How much internal memory it is there? So 128 MB, 128 GB, or how much is the RAM? 8 GB or 16 GB. So all the phones are having these features in common. Okay. So any phone, any model, it may be ranging from 10,000 to 1 lakh also. So these are the common features for all the phones and all the models. So you can classify it as a good phone, optimal phone, or it is a costly phone based on these features only. Likewise, for our classification, what are the features that will be in all the images or all the data? That is called as feature extraction. We are going to extract something that is common in everything, that is common in all the images, and we are going to classify based on the features. Like we are able to say it is an optimally costly phone. It is not too much costly. If the internal memory is high and the cost is also optimal, we can say it as a optimal phone. Otherwise, the internal memory is very less, cost is very high. Now we will be saying that we cannot afford this much cost for this much configuration. So likewise, these are called as the features, feature extraction. After feature extraction, we go for classification. So that phone is worth to buy or not worth to buy. That is what is said to be classification. Okay. And coming to artificial neural networks, an artificial neural network is a biologically inspired artificial intelligence model. So artificial neural network, the name itself we can understand, neurons are nothing but the cells of the brain. So it's a biologically inspired. So this is inspired from biology. So how your brain is modeled. The brain is having so many neurons. The communications happen from one neuron to the other. So likewise, the brain is able to decide on certain things. It sees something, it hears something, and that communication is done from one end to the other end, and we are able to perceive the things. Likewise, we have developed an artificial neural network model. Rightly to say, you compare this with this. So this is what is the neural network model, simply to, and these features, and this is, if you take this as, okay, let me take this as the input end and this as the output end, because two class it is classifying. Okay, something, if your person says, you will be able to decide whether it is good or bad. You are deciding based on the previous experience. Likewise, an artificial neural network is trained on several features. Okay, so the different features from different inputs you will feed here, and it is able to classify whether it is belonging to one class or another class. So that is what is your artificial neural network is all about. So during the training phase, the weights are learned for the input features. You supply the input features and the weights are learned. What is by weights? Weights are nothing but simply you can think. Suppose two people are there. So two people are there, and you want to make a decision on one of the particular task. So two people are giving input. Okay. So you give utmost importance to the first person's input, and you give less importance, or at least or null importance to the second person. That means the weightage you are giving to the first person is 1, and the weightage you are giving to the second person is 0. Okay, so you are completely considering the ideas of person 1 and not considering the ideas of the person 2. In that sense, the weightage here it will be equal to 1, and here it will be equal to 0. So in that way, the neural network will learn, and at last the classification task fails. If it is failing, the error will be back propagated. And based on that back propagation, I will understand there is some error, and I will decrease the weightage for the first person and increase the weightage for the second person. For example, from 1, I will reduce the weightage for the first person. From 1, I am coming to 0.8. And 0 is the weightage for the second person. I am increasing the weightage for the second person. So from 0, I am taking it to 0.2. So then again, I am checking. Likewise, this I am telling very simple for you to understand. But really, if you see, there are gradient descent algorithms. So how the error is reduced with respect to the change in weight. So those are called as the gradient descent algorithms. So based on that, the weights are being modified. So this is called as the input layer. If you take a artificial neural network, these are the input layers, and these are the hidden layers, and these are the output layers. Typically, the output layers will be equal to the number of classes. How many classes I am having, those many number of output neurons will be there in the output layer. So 2 neurons in the output layer, now I'm going for a 2-class classification task, maybe good or bad, belonging to class 1 or class 2. Likewise, I'm doing some classification for which 4 features I am giving as an input. Suppose you want to decide whether a phone is good or not. Okay, the internal memory, the RAM size, the camera pixel, and the cost. So those are the inputs you are giving. and based on that, several hundred data, the data of 100, and you are also saying that is good or bad. Based on that, it learns, and the error will be back propagated, and the weights will be adjusted. So, more number of layers you add, the more non-linear it will be. You will see what is by linear and non-linear. Okay. During the training phase, the weights are learned for the input features, and during the testing phase, whatever weights that are learned already that are used to classify the new data. So new features I am giving. So don't get confused with the features and the input. Okay. From the input, you are taking some common parameters. Those are called as the features. So during the training phase, whatever weights are learned, those weights are being stored here, and with the new data that is being classified. So that is what is your artificial neural network is all about. And just to justify the lecture that it is pattern recognition, what is by clustering? Clustering is grouping data based on feature similarity. Suppose based on the similarity of features, I am grouping several data. So that becomes ultimately classification. So for clustering type of task, fuzzy clustering will be significant. That's what is told here. And support vector machines. Support vector machines are also very popular machine. It's also a very popular machine learning algorithm. What it does now, it draws a line. It draws a line to classify the data. So this is class 2 data now. What a support vector machine will do is it will draw a it defines an equation for a hyperplane that optimally classifies between class 1 and class 2 by defining an equation line or plane that classifies data. So you are seeing this data very good and fine. So this data is being very simple to explain. But in real time, how the data looks like, we will see in some of the upcoming slides. Just to understand what is in the SVM, I have shown a very comfortable data. So this is class 1 and class 2. What an SVM will do, support vector machine will do now. Support vector machine is popular even today also. It always gives good results. So for that, we are using support vector machines also. Even after the convolutional neural networks or deep learning has taken the role, we are now also using support vector machines for several applications. Why? Because of the successful outcomes of SVM. Okay. How it classifies data means by defining an equation for a line that is best classifying between the two classes. This is class 1 and class 2. You assume like that. And now we are coming to what is by linearly separable data. What we saw in the previous slide is simply a linear separable data. What is by linearly separable data? Okay, a simple example can be given as a pass mark. A pass mark in the sense, those who got above 50 are all pass, and those who have got less than 50 are all fail. That is a very simple thresholding operation. Likewise, we are able to classify data based on some threshold. That is what is simply a linearly separable data. So here, linearly separable data. So what this support vector machine will do, or a linear classification task will do, is we define a line. The equation for a line, it will be equal to y equal to mx plus c, where x is the input and y is the output, and m dictates the slope of the line. Okay. Suppose the slope of the line is changed, the line looks like this. Then it is ultimately going to classify wrong data. Okay. So green is coming to the bottom, and some of the red points are going to the top. If I draw, so that is what m dictates the slope of the line, and this c is the bias. Bias in the sense this line is located. The line is located somewhere upwards or somewhere downwards. That is what is going to be by c. So what this support vector machine will do. So you can take the same concept and understand the neural network also. So we are going to define an equation. Okay. In machine learning perspective, what it looks like, it is coming now. And before that, to complete m represents the line, the bias is nothing but the location of the line, as I told you. And in machine learning perspective, y is equal to wx plus b. Can very well compare these two simple equations. So now the equation for the straight line, m is the, likewise now it becomes weight, whatever weights that are learned. Just now I told, no, whenever you are going for artificial neural network, person 1 and person 2 is there. Person 2 is giving some input. Person 1 is giving some input. You are giving the ultimate importance. That means weight is 1. Person 2 is giving some input. You are giving no importance. That means weight is 0. So based on the outcomes, you are modifying the weights. Likewise, I gave some example. So with that, we are connecting this now. So this weight is nothing but whatever weights that are learned here. Whatever weights that are learned here. Of course, each connection represents a weight. You can see that every input feature is connected with every hidden layer. Okay. So from the first neuron, this is the first feature. Let me say, it is connected to every hidden layer. It's connected to all the hidden layers. Similarly, second, the feature. And likewise, the hidden layers are also connected to all the output layers. So the output layer should be equal to the number of classes, good and bad, or class 1 and class 2. Likewise, the understanding you have to take. And in another perspective, you can see the weights are learned with this line. So y is equal to wx plus b means where w is the weight and b is the bias. Bias in the sense where that particular line will be located. So the machine learning algorithm iteratively learns the weights for different inputs. That's what I told you. Importantly, for linearly non-separable data or non-linear inputs. In real time, if you see, it is not required to depute a machine learning algorithm or deep learning algorithm for a simple linear data. Linear data is very simple. It is like assigning for a high-end person, it's very simple task. It is not suitable. So for what type of inputs we have to go for machine learning task or machine learning algorithm or deep learning algorithm, now, it should be taken for a linearly non-separable data only, or simply to say these are called as non-linear inputs. How those non-linear inputs will be looking like means not like this. All the data are grouped together. Okay, for classifying these type of data. So now I will not be able to draw a line that segregates between class 1 and class 2. Any line will not classify between class 1 and class 2. I think three classes are there: yellow, light blue, and dark blue. Likewise, three classes are there. Any line cannot segregate. So time being, let us take yellow and blue. If you want to classify between yellow and blue, yellow is maybe good and the blue is maybe bad, or yellow is class 1 and blue is class 2. Likewise, if you take any line, if you draw, it may not be able to classify between class 1 and class 2. So for that only what we are having now, we are having something called, okay, before that let us complete what is given in the slide. Only for linearly non-separable data, we use machine learning. That is very, very important. Okay. The activation function in an ANN or CNN. So activation function is the particular equation that is going to transform the linear space into a non-linear space. Suppose you imagine all the blue dots are coming up, okay, and the yellow dots are staying down only. So then you can define a hyperplane that segregates between the yellow dots and blue dots, isn't it? So in that situation, the activation function is a non-linear function. The activation functions are used in artificial neural networks and convolutional neural networks. Unfortunately, most of the researchers are not concentrating on the activation function. So activation functions are very important modules, which are going to convert your non-linear data into non-linear data. So linearly non-separable data into linearly separable data. Okay. So that is going to convert a non-linear data into linear data. So these dots are coming up, blue dots are coming up and yellow dots are staying down. You may comfortably define a hyperplane, again with the equation Wx plus b, that classifies best between the two classes. So that is what. So activation function is used in ANN or CNN, and kernel function. In SVM, we call it as a kernel function that is going to convert a non-linear data into linearly separable data. So that is what is the basics of your artificial neural networks. So you may be thinking that you are getting too much today, but I'm telling everything on very simple terms only. If you take a textbook of machine learning, so much of mathematics is there and so much is there to learn. But what I am trying to give you as input is, suppose you want to do a project in machine learning or deep learning, what are all the very basic things you need to know, and what are all the things that will guide you in doing the project. With that perspective, I'm proceeding now. And what is by supervised learning and unsupervised learning also you need very well. So what are those? So you are coming level of feature extraction. Okay. So train, X test, Y test. So these are the key terminologies when you are doing learning work. Okay, X train. What is X train, Y train? Suppose now I am taking an example of image classification task. So I am imagining 100 images in my database. So what I will do now, I will take the first 80 images for training and remaining 20 images for testing. So broadly, two stages are there in a machine learning task. First step is training, and second step is to test. So first 80 images I am taking. Out of all the 80 images, we are extracting the images. So I'm extracting. So that only distinguishes between a machine learning task and a deep learning task. If I'm having very little number of features, that is machine learning ultimately. If I'm having more features, more and more features like 1,000 features or 10,000 features, that is deep learning. So that is what I have understood so far, and you can very well check that also, and you can have your own definition also. So machine learning in the sense limited features. So what is in by that features? Suppose if you are going to classify a human face, where and all I should where and all the machine learning algorithm should certain important points like the eye features, it should be able to get. You should be able to get the intensities and textures around these regions. that will be able to classify as a human face or a not. If it is a human face or not, whether a human face is detected or not, around the lips and around the nose. So these are the important points, and the intensities and textures around these points may be taken and given as input features, and that is what. If you go for a medical electronics example, this is a normal image, this is a diseased image. Okay, so this is without any disease. Here some diabetic is there. Diabetic retinopathy is a disease caused in the human eye because of the increase of diabetes. So you can see so much of white patches at the background. Okay. So those white patches are learned and they are shown at the output as black dots. That means these are the disease affected areas. So likewise, if we want to learn the diabetic retinopathy, these white features should be learned. So those are taken as features and those are given as the input. That is what we call as the X-train. X-train is nothing but the features of the input class. And what is white train? White train is also the label. White train is label. That means it is having disease or it is not having disease. That also we have to give. Don't think that the algorithm, the artificial neural network, immediately it will say, given an image, it is having a disease or not. It's not a magic. Okay. First, you have to train the network. Train the network in the sense, for these type of features, it belongs to class 0. For these type of features, it belongs to class 1. Likewise, you have to give some input and train. Not on 80 images, it has to be trained for several iterations. 100 iterations to 200 iterations, it has to get trained. And at every iteration, the weights are adjusted. Weights are kept changing based on the gradient descent algorithm. That's what I told. Dou E divided by dou W. That is what is the important key term that we are going to see next. The error should be decreasing as you change the weights. As we saw here, no? Here or even in the first slide, the weights are adjusted. When you adjust the weights, the ultimate objective is when you adjust the error, it reduces at the. What is the important thing we have to keep in mind. Likewise, during the training phase, when it is trained iteration to iteration, the weights are kept changing so that the error gets reduced. What is by that error? We will see next. When we come to the testing phase, again, for the testing images also, almost we take 80% of the data for training and 20% of the data for testing. So the remaining images you are taking for testing, the same extracting from the remaining testing class images also, images that are testing also, the extract, and your algorithm predicts whether it is class 0 or class 1. So first two images I am taking for testing, it is predicting as class 0. Like you already have the label that is called as a ground truth. The ground truth is there for the testing images also. Suppose my algorithm is predicting class 0 as class 0 itself, that is correct. My algorithm is predicting class 1 as class 0, now there is an error. And number of errors have to be backpropagated. Based on that, the weight should be adjusted. So this is what is the simple supervised learning task. So I am telling as supervised versus unsupervised learning. But actually, I showcase here only the supervised learning. A typical illustration of supervised learning only I am showing here. Unsupervised learning, we are not interested here. So unsupervised learning, class not giving. Okay, the class belonging we are not giving. Ultimately, based on the feature similar way as class 1 and class 2. Some fuzzy clustering is there. That is unsupervised learning method. It categorizes the pixels in an image based on the similarities. But there is no definition that is class 1 or class 2. The pixels are class 1 or class 2. There is no definition like that. It ultimately segregates as two classes without any definition for the classes itself. That is said to be unsupervised learning. So unsupervised learning is also very popular and much higher tasks are done in unsupervised learning also. Anyhow, now we are concentrating on the supervised learning alone. Okay. And this is what is the example I told for how to extract the features. We need to extract some features. The features are descriptors. Okay, like you say, for a mobile phone to be purchased, what is the internal memory, RAM memory, what is the camera megapixels you define. That is what those are the descriptors, which may be either qualitative or quantitative. Simply you feed us numbers now, that is quantitative. You give the entire image or give some textual descriptor image. The image patch itself you are giving now, that is said to be qualitative. So the features are nothing but either it can be taken as qualitative inputs or quantitative inputs also. So features are nothing but you are taking some particular important parameters from the input image to classify it as a either it is class 0 or class 1, whether disease is not there or disease is there. Okay. Suppose if I am taking for this image, so it is reading the image at all the points. So those white patches are not present here. So those features are corresponding to class 0. Suppose if I take this image, here there are more patches indicating diabetic retinopathy. So those features will be having different values, and those are learnt as class 1. Similarly, if you give a new image, it should be able to say whether it is a normal image or a disease image. That is what is your supervised learning is all about. And during the introduction of the lecture itself, I told some mathematics you should be familiar or you should be knowing to understand the concept and its dimensions. Okay, why? Because if I simply show the pictures and explain everything, it seems to be a non-technical lecture. It will look like a non-technical lecture. So you have to digest some mathematics. Okay, so this is a simple artificial neural network which resembles this type of neural network only. So now that is taken with mathematics also, which gives the actual meaning. So this is the artificial neural network. So there are several features. So these are not the actual entire input itself. So some people think that the entire image itself is given here. No, the feature 1, feature 2, likewise you are giving. And these are the hidden neurons, neurons of the hidden layer. And these are the neurons of the output layer. We have output layer, one hidden layer and one output layer. So ultimately what happens, take one hidden layer. So this is the third hidden layer, let me say. The third hidden layer will receive the input from first input, second input, and also the last input. And there are weights assigned. Vij is the weight assigned. So Vij is the weight assigned in the sense this is V13. Why? Because it is coming from the first input to the last output. So V13, this will be called as V23 and this will be called as V33. Likewise, we multiply the weight with the corresponding input. Okay, so that is what is given by the equation. Vij multiplied by xi. Vij multiplied by xi in the sense the input corresponding to the weight is multiplied with the input itself. So Vij is multiplied with xi and that is being summed, cumulatively summed. Cumulatively summed in the sense, what are all the inputs? How many inputs? I am simply saying 3. Whatever inputs that are coming, the weights multiplied with the corresponding inputs that is taken here. So that is what is the weight term. And another term is of course the bias. You know what is the use of the weight and the bias? Weight is to define a line that classifies between the two classes. After converting the linear data to a non-linear, after converting the non-linear data to a linear space, because linear space is very simple for classification. So what we do is, after taking this weights and multiplying with the input, we add it with the bias. So that is what ith input to the jth hidden node. So this is what is the equation you need to remember for the artificial neural networks first layer. It's very simple. So each hidden node is having 3 inputs. That weights are multiplied with the corresponding inputs and added with the bias. So bias is the term that is also given to all the neurons. So that is what. And after that, this is the net input to the hidden layer. Net input to the hidden layer. Now, what is the input I am receiving at this particular hidden layer? And after that, output of the hidden layer will be some f of. This f of is very important. It denotes the nonlinear activation function. So that activation function is a very particular term that is going to convert the linear data to a nonlinear data. So when you take this function of, so there are several activation functions which we will discuss in the upcoming slides, that is going to convert the data from nonlinear space to linear space. So most of the data available in nature are nonlinear in nature. So this is nonlinear type of data. So they are everything mixed up. All the data are being mixed up. So that activation function is giving the kernel space that is able to make this nonlinear data into a linearly separable data. That means some of the classes will go to some other location and these classes will go to some other location. So you can comfortably draw and learn a line that segregates between class 1 and the class 2. That is what is the ultimate objective is. So that is the objective of the activation function. So this is the input layer to hidden layer equations we have learned. Similarly, hidden layer to output layer, that is also there. So don't think that only one hidden layer, so many hidden layers can be there. So the more the hidden layers you are taking, more non-linearity the network becomes and more appropriate learning will be there. More neurons and more hidden layers will be giving more accurate results. And that machine learning engineers, what they do is they do this as a trial only. They're keeping the number of neurons, 1, 2, 3 neurons, making it as 10, making it as 5, which is giving the better output, and including some more layers, whether I'm getting better output. That is simply based on the trial and error. There is no exact formula for that. So that is simply subjective. Okay. And similarly, net input to the output layer, and the output also you have the activation function. Output layer's activation function is also there. That is going to give you the output. We have to connect this F with this output. whatever output my algorithm is predicting. That my algorithm is predicting some value at the output. It may be zeros and ones, or it may be some values also. Okay. So that Y predict has to be compared with the Y test to understand whether the error is there or not. So in that situation, you have to do that. So output of the output layer is the last value we are getting out of the neural network that gives some value for each of the output class. So this is the output class. Suppose we are having a 3-class classification task. So that is very important. The number of neurons in the output layer will be equal to the number of classes we are intended to classify. So 3 classes I am intended to classify now. There will be 3 neurons in the output layer. Each neuron will be firing some output. So based on the output, for example, this is 0.1, this is 0.5, this is 0.9. I can understand it has more orientation towards class 3. Actually, that belongs to class 3 now. The error back propagated will be very less. Suppose it belongs to class 1, but class 1's output is 0.1 only. This is 0.2, this is 0.9 now. It is wrongly classified. The error will be back propagated. And that's what comes next to back propagation. Back propagation, error is done. Del k is equal to tk minus yk. Again, some more little mathematics we need to digest. That is, yk is the output of the algorithm, and tk is the actual ground truth. Ground truth in the sense whether the image belongs to class 1 or class 2. In our case, in medical electronics data, the ground truth will be provided by the doctors. The doctor has to say whether it is a diseased image or not. The doctor is saying it is a diseased image. Your algorithm is also predicting it as a diseased image. So ultimately the error will be 0. Suppose if the error is there, the weight should be updated. The simplest formula for weight update I have given. It's a very big formula. So learning rate multiplied by error. Error has to be multiplied with some learning rate. So based on that, weight update should be done. How the weight should be updated during the back propagation? Back propagation, the error is taken back. Based on that, the weights will be adjusted. So the weight has to be adjusted such that the error reduces. That is what is a simple philosophy we can say. Gradient descent algorithm is the simplest and most popular algorithm for changing the weights so that the error gets decreased. Gradient descent algorithm is based on changing the weights in the direction that reduces E divided by del omega. So this is what they call as the gradient. Gradient in the sense, the rate of change of error with respect to weights. As we change the weights, the error should get decreased. Error should not increase. If the error increases, you are going ultimately opposite to the direction of our objective. Okay, so that is a gradient descent algorithm. So this is the simple explanation, the most simplest explanation possible I have given. Suppose if you take any textbook of artificial neural networks, you should be studying things in 5 or 6 chapters. Okay, so whatever is important for you as an undergraduate student to do some projects, that's what I am giving you as input. Okay, before going to the convolutional neural networks, if you have any doubts, you can ask me. So we'll have a typical discussion session.
We can ask them at the end of the class, sir.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, that's what. After learning about the artificial neural networks, let us have some introduction to convolutional neural networks. So I told as I told you, artificial neural networks connects to machine learning. So less number of features and less number of layers and less computational time, less computational complexity, that is machine learning. And going to deep learning, so more number of layers, more input images, like we start with 10,000 images, 20,000 images. That is what is deep learning is all about, and better accuracy also. So that's what I understood as a difference between the machine learning and the deep learning. So CNN connects to deep learning. So first what we are going to see now different layers of convolutional neural networks. The convolutional neural network consists of typically convolution layer activation function. Activation function is to convert typically the non-linear data to a linear space. That is what is your activation function is all about. Okay. And then you have the max pool layer, dropout layer, and the fully connected layer, plus some other layers. That means any convolutional neural network will be having all these layers. Okay. Convolution layer for picking up the features. So before in machine learning or artificial neural networks, when you saw the feature extraction and classification are separate. You are taking the features separately and you are giving to the neural network, isn't it? You are taking the features separately and those features are given as inputs separately for the, so here the feature extraction and classification are different, okay. But when it comes to the convolutional neural networks, the convolution layer consists of several filters. Those filters will be extracting many features from the images. The two in each convolution layer, there are so many filters, 30 to 40 filters will be there. And not only one convolution layer, several convolution layers are there. This is the smallest CNN we are seeing here. So many convolution layers in the sense, so much features are being extracted and they are given to the fully connected layer. The fully connected layer resembles the convolutional artificial neural network. So finally, the weight changes are happening and error calculation, back propagation of error, that and all are done in the fully connected layers here. Okay. So typically, these are the layers in a convolutional neural network. Okay. So you'll see what is by convolution layer. The convolution layer in the sense. So I told several filters are there. So this is a typical simple filter, a 2x2 filter or a 2x2 kernel. We will call it as an image processing. So it's a T by T kernel. So it's a low pass kernel. Okay, low pass kernel is there. And that is taken for an image. This is a simple image patch where you have different gray levels like this. So what this convolution layer is going to do, the convolution layer is going to extract cumulative sum of products. Cumulative sum of products in the sense, I'm going to keep this particular kernel over the image, sub-image, same here. Cumulative sum of products value to value. Okay, sub-image filter mask. So 1 is multiplied with 1, 2 with 1, 4 with 1, and 5 with 1. So if you add all these, become 12. Then I am moving the filter to the next location. So this is called a stride. Stride is equal to 1 means one location we are moving and we are applying and we are making the cumulative sum of the values here and we are taking it the filtered output. So likewise, when you do filters, so this is the simplest filter as I told you. Several other filters are also there. This is called as a low pass filter. Why? Because it averages the values here. That is what is called as a low pass filter or smoothing filter. Whereas you have high pass filter or sharpening filter. If you apply a high pass filter to a Lena image, which is a digital image processing, it is able to extract the edges of the image and these features will be fed to the finally fully connected layer. So what is done here is, in this convolutional neural network, each convolution layer will be having several filters and those filters are going to be convolved with the input image. That is why it is rightly called as convolutional neural networks. So the feature extraction is taken care by the convolution layers. So many convolution layer and in each of the convolution layer, many filters are there. So much of features are being extracted. That's why it is called as deep learning. And also many layers are being appended one to other. And following the layering of convolution layer followed by max pool and then fully connected layer. So this is the order. So some other convolutional neural CNN may be having some other layers also in addition. But these are the standard layers. After that, you have the fully connected layer. And the activation function in the fully connected layer will be a softmax. Why that we will see later. And that's what. So the convolution layers are able to extract the edges. And those edge information will be given to the fully connected layer. So simply a Lena image we have seen that is popular in digital image processing, like retinal fundus images, how the convolution filters will be able to extract the edge features from the particular image. That also is given here. So that is what is your convolution layer. So some mathematics also we have to think about the convolution layer. So X is the input and Y is the output. So what are these three informations? A very big formula. It's very simple actually. So D power L. So that many filters we are having. So that is what is being represented here. And you are supplying this many filters at one particular convolution layer. At a single convolution layer, what you are doing, these many filters you are supplying, and each filter is being multiplied with the original image. Then if you come to the next summation, I is equal to 0, J is equal to 0 means here also I is equal to 0, J is equal to 0. Here also I is equal to 0, J is equal to 0. We have to come for this. This I power J power represents the level. So from one level to next level we are going. Okay. Likewise, this I power L plus 1 and this power I power L plus 1 represents the level. And this I is a variable and J is a variable which I have shown in yellow. So this is the original image. And after that, you have supplied a particular kernel. What happens is that particular kernel's Fij we have to take. That Fij is nothing but this one. I is equal to 1 that is first row. J is equal to 1 that is first column. So row wise and the column wise. That is why it is given as a two-dimensional entity, f of I comma j. So what happens now? Fi correspondingly multiplied with the xi and xj. Fi and j multiplied with the xi and j. That means pixel-wise multiplication is accomplished, which is given by this particular formula. Okay, an input image is converted of filters. That is very important. We are not having a single filter. We are having 30 filters, 40 filters, or even 120 filters at each convolution layer, which you can give in the coding. We are not going to define the filter as we did in the ANN or any other basic machine learning classifier. We are not going to define the filter. These are all inbuilt in the libraries. So what if you define 30 filters, the CNN itself will generate, and that will convolve on the input image, okay, producing the feature maps. So after convolution, what happens? Feature maps are being produced. So when you refer to the textbook Digital Image Processing by Gonzalez, you have to study the topic called Basics of Filtering in Spatial Domain. You study that, you can better understand what is Bayes convolution layer. In a CNN, a bank of convolution filters is used, and there are several convolution layers. In a single layer, bank of convolution filters are there, and there are several convolution layers also. Okay, that is why that is what going to do the typical process of feature extraction, and we are going to take the features, and those edge feature maps will be given to the convolution neural network. So after the convolution layer, what should be there? After the convolution layer, there should be some activation function, which is not shown here, but anyhow, you need an activation function. So what is that activation function in the sense? It is to add some non-linearity to the data under classification, so that the classification will become simple. The activation function presents the essence of the entire data. That means the activation function, it simplifies the data. Okay, whatever the entire data is present, it is being simplified, and the essence of the entire data is given by the activation function. Some simple activation functions we can see: logistic or sigmoidal function. So this is a sigmoidal function. What this sigmoidal function? It is based on the formula 1 by 1 plus e power minus x, means that x is the input. Based on that, you have the sigmoidal or soft, okay, soft step, and then you have a tan h activation function is the so what is the meaning now? For some range of the input, it is linearly increasing. After a certain range, it is gradually increasing. That is what is your tan h activation function is doing. So these are all the typical mathematical activation functions that are going to convert the non-linear data into linearly separable data. That means it is going to simplify the data. Okay. For example, if you see the tan h highly increasing for some range, afterwards it is standardized and the increase is being reduced. So these are all the activation functions that are used in the artificial neural networks. Nowadays in convolutional neural networks, they popularly use the ReLU. ReLU is rectified linear unit, is one of the activation functions, which makes the negative inputs 0 and the positive inputs are taken as it is. That is, for x greater than 0, 1, 2 and all are taken as it is. That is called as a ReLU activation function. Likewise, we have activation function. So if you see the different layers of a convolutional neural network, input image followed by convolution layer. As I told you, convolution layer is used to extract the features, and after that, it is not shown in the diagram also, then also that is important. After every convolution layer, there will be activation function. That is to simplify the data or take the data to linear to non-linear space, whatever you can think. And after that, you are having max pooling. What is that max pooling? As I told you already, every convolution layer is having so much of filters, and there are also so many convolution layers. So a bank of features are there, abundant features are there. So you have to reduce the features. So how to reduce the features now? By using a max pooling. What is max pooling means? Suppose you get the tensors like this, a patch of the image. At every 4 by 4 patch, 2 by 2 patch, what I am doing now, I am retaining only the maximum value. Otherwise, so much of filters and so much of feature extraction, if you do, so much redundant data will be there. So a particular patch is taken, and in that patch, the maximum value. So that is what is max pooling. As in a typical CNN, so many convolution filters are used. There is also a repetition of convolution layers. Okay, so many convolution filters are used, and repetition of convolution layers are also there. So too many features burden the CNN. So for that, what we do is max pooling is done to reduce the redundant features. So redundant features means repetition of features. The repetition of features will be reduced if you do max pooling. That is what is the case. And finally, you have the fully connected layer. As I told you already, what is a fully connected layer? Na? It resembles the artificial neural network, where the weight change or learning is being accomplished. So looking back to the different layers of a convolutional neural network, input image, and finally you have the fully connected layer. As I told you, convolutional layer is picking up the features. By multiplying the original image with the different filter banks, it is extracting the features, and maxpool is reducing some of the features. It is not reducing any feature, it is reducing the redundant feature. Max pooling in the sense it retains the maximum value alone. So many layers likewise it is added. That's why it is called as a deep learning. This is the simplest CNN we have shown here. So many layers will be added, and after that, so much of features are being extracted, and finally you have the fully connected layer. What is a fully connected layer? Whatever the change in weights to learn the data, all the data are being learned with respect to its class. The typical supervised learning we already know. So the fully connected layers are there. And anyhow, the final last fully connected layer, it should be having the neurons. Number of neurons should be equal to the number of classes. To revise that, we can see here. If it is 3-class classification task, finally you have 3 neurons. So finally the fully connected layer is like this. CNN, the last layer resembles a CNN. That means these are the features. What is the difference between convolutional neural network and ANN now? In convolutional in ANN, what we do is separately we extract the features by some by methods. By typical methods that are different for different types of applications, we extract the features, and those features are given to the artificial neural networks. But in convolutional neural network, what we are doing, we are not going to change any procedure, any type of input. What we are going to do, several convolution layers are there. The convolution layers act upon the input image. Those features are being fed to the finally fully connected layer. So this is typically a final layer also, not only a simple ANN. This can also be taken as a fully connected layer of a convolutional neural network, and that is going to do not only one fully connected layer. Connected layers should be there, can be there. And finally, what we can think is in the last fully connected layer, the number of nodes should be equal to the number of classes. And finally, you have the softmax activation function. What is that softmax activation function? As we have seen here, this is a softmax. Tan H is also called a softmax. So the output will be in the range of 0 to 1. So when I want to classify the output, I need to be in the range of 0 to 1. That is what is the softmax activation function is going to do. And we have completed almost what is a artificial neural network and what is a convolution neural network also. Okay. So I can just revise through the slides. Then we can go for some typical popular CNN models, because almost we completed up to this. Okay. Then we have to directly go to coding in Python only. So before I go to that, you can go through all this so that you can have a brush up. So learning will be somewhat comfortable for you. Okay. So what I will do is important slides I will keep for just 1 or 2 minutes so that you can go through it, thereby giving some time for me also to relax and just go through this. So what is by supervised learning and unsupervised learning is very important. To give the class definition also, that is called as supervised learning. This is about the feature extraction. So picking up the intensities and textures near the areas of interest. That is what is the feature extraction. And what is an AN and basics we learned, and how the weights are learned. Okay, how the outputs are produced in different layers of a artificial neural network we studied, where this is the summing up of inputs and weights. After that, you have an activation function also, and how the error is back propagated. And later we came to CNN, convolutional neural network. I told that the convolution layers are feature extracting the features, and max pool is for reducing the features, reducing the redundant features, and then fully connected layers are used for learning the weights with error back propagation, artificial neural network. And we saw what is typically a convolution layer doing. It is extracting important features from an image, like from a fundus image also. This is called as a fundus of the human eye. From the fundus image, how the features are extracted by a convolution layer. And what is a typical activation function? We learned it. What is max pooling? We studied. Fully connected layer. The fully connected layer resembles a artificial neural network where the weight changing or learning is accomplished. So changing of weights is nothing but learning here. Okay. After that, we come to see some of the popular CNN models. So just by learning what the different layers of a convolutional neural network, we have to convince ourselves by looking at the popular CNN models are made up of these layers only. Maybe different combinations of these layers, but anyhow, the basic thing we have known already. Okay. So ResNet. So figure shows a 34 layer ResNet. So this is a 34 layer ResNet. As I told, this goes very deep. That's why it is called as deep learning appropriately. So what are there here? Convolution pooling. Likewise, several layers are there. And the importance of ResNet is it has skip connections. What is by the skip connections? Ultimately, when you go very deep in the learning, the actual data may be lost after some of the deep layers. So what we are doing now, we are adding the original image also after some layers. That is what is called as skip connections. And that is what is the uniqueness of ResNet, which has skip connections. The skip connections offer an alternative path for gradients during back propagation and avoid vanishing gradient. What is by vanishing gradient? Gradient is nothing but the rate of change of error with respect to weight. Okay. So the error should be keep on reducing when the weights are changing. That is del V divided by del W. So sometimes when the layers are going very deep, what will happen now? During the back propagation stage, the del E divided by del W may become very less, as much as 0. So there is no learning at all. That is what is called as vanishing gradient. By adding the original image at each different steps, at each equal steps, that is preserving the original image features also. And that is what is the speciality of the ResNet. 34 layer residual network. We are having a 7 by 7 convolution layer in the sense the size of the convolution filter will be 7 by 7. And how many filters are used now? 64. Okay. So 7 by 7 convolution layer. So here we have used a 3 by 3 convolution layer. Likewise, in ResNet they are using 7 by 7 convolution layer. So at a particular layer, 64 filters are being used. Okay. So likewise, it keeps going. And as we go on, we increase the number of layers. Okay. For reasons that are obvious, we reduce the filter size, but we increase the number of filters, 128 filters. Here we have 256 filters. And finally, in the fully connected layer, we have 1000 neurons. That means up to 1000 classes we can classify here. Okay. That is what is the speciality of ResNet. Not only 3 class or 4 class classification possible. There are online databases. There are almost as much as 1000 classes of images may be there that can be classified by a ResNet. We can of course change this. Fully connected layer, if you change to 5, so we can have a 5 class classification task also. And next comes the AlexNet. What is AlexNet? That's a simple CNN we have seen here. That is what is AlexNet. The AlexNet became successful in ImageNet competition. That is one of the competitions held to classify images, many images that are being taken in a database. Large scale visual recognition challenge that is being conducted in 2012. So that AlexNet won the competition. So what are the different layers of AlexNet? 5 convolution layers are there, max pooling layer, overlapping with a stride of 2. What is by that stride also I told. Stride is nothing but at what range you are moving the particular convolution layer. So this is stride 1. Okay. So stride 1 means it does the feature extraction very tightly. Okay. With a stride of 2. That means at every convolution, it is next taken to the 2 pixels, next to second pixel. Okay. ReLU is the activation function used that was accelerating the speed of convergence. That means almost 6 times the speed was higher when you are using ReLU as the activation function of AlexNet. So 2 fully connected layers are there with softmax activation function at the output, which produces probability maps in the range of 0 to 1. That we know why we are having the last layer always as softmax in any of the convolution neural network. For example, in this AlexNet also, softmax is the last layer's activation function. Why? Because it produces the final output as a probability in the range of 0 to 1. If you look at a simple ANN also, the final layer should produce outputs within 0 to 1. That means the probability of belonging to that particular class. Previous example, I told 0.1, 0.2, 0.9. That means 1% probability for first class, second person probability for class, probability for class 3. Ultimately, if you add all, should be equal to 1. That is what is your softmax activation function is all about. And after seeing about some of the popular CNN models also, we got convinced that something we know about the convolution neural networks. Why? Because you take the most popular neural networks, ResNet and AlexNet, they are having the layers what we know already. Nothing other than the convolution layer, max pool layer, dropout layer, fully connected layer. So that's what. After doing that, what is the first thing I have to bother if I want to go for a simple project now? So database, where I am getting the database. Database is the first thing I need to bother. So there is a popular database called MNIST. So this is the simplest database available to do any deep learning task. So this is like an ABCD of deep learning task. So here there are 10 classes. So handwritten characterized, 70,000 images are there. If you take this each one as a single image, 70,000 black and white images are there, each with the size 28 by 28. And there are 9 classes. It is given wrongly. Actually, 10 classes are there. So the importance of this MNIST database is that it can be directly operated in the cloud itself, directly operated from the database server itself. We can do the deep learning classification task. After completing this, we will see one example also, how the classification of MNIST database is being done. So ultimately, when you want to develop a project, you choose the proper database first. Don't say as an image processing project, we are going to acquire the images with our own cameras. That is not possible. So these are called as gold standard database. So when you use these databases, the publishers are ready to publish your papers. That's what. Okay. And there is something called a fashion MNIST. The fashion MNIST consists of 60,000 images and 10,000 test images, 60,000 trainings images and 10,000 testing images. That means it has totally 70,000 images of different cloths, male cloths and female cloths and shoes. How many classes are there? 10 classes are there. Okay, each image is of size 28 by 28. And this is fashion MNIST. There is another database, the WebLink I have given. It is in the Kaggle repository. Kaggle is a repository which has several databases. And this MNIST database is given by the Keras machine learning library. Okay, Keras deep learning library is giving this MNIST dataset. Suppose you are developing some algorithm. So that algorithm, to test that algorithm, we are having standard databases. That library itself provides a standard database. So MNIST is like ABCD, as I already told you. And after that, in Kaggle repository, you have diabetic retinopathy database. So what is it? You have 35,126 color fundus images encompassing 5 classes of diabetic retinopathy. Labels are given in a separate Excel. So the major challenge here when you do the coding, how to handle different databases. That's why I told you MNIST is very simple. MNIST is very simple. Why? Because you can directly call it from the database server. You need not download it. You need not bother about how to classify this as training data, testing data. Okay, what is a label? Everything is already inbuilt. So this is the simplest database available. In fact, Udemy and all is conducting courses like beyond MNIST to learn the deep learning. That means MNIST is ultimately taken as the simplest training task. Okay. And if you go for diabetic retinopathy classification, the Kaggle repository is having so many images. So I told deep learning means we have to take more images, and ultimately the outcome will be better. Okay. So labels are given in a separate Excel. So we have to code ourselves. We have to do the coding so that this image corresponds to class 1. That we have to separately fetch from the output Excel sheet, and that we have to classify. That means this particular image should be learned with respect to one particular cell of the Excel sheet. In that Excel sheet, it will be given whether it belongs to class 1 or class 2 or class 3. Like this, that is what. And next one is IIIT Hyderabad, that is maintaining a database for optical disc and cup segmentation from diabetic retinopathy image. So this is the input image. The database name is Drishti. This and this are not same databases, they are different. So this is only having images, and its class belonging less like whether it is a no disease image or a mildly diseased image or severely diseased image. Likewise, 5 classes of images will be there, and that is a different database. This here we don't have the information like whether it is a diseased image or non-diseased image. Fundus images are there. How many means 101 images are there, 51 for training and remaining for testing. And that is each image will be given with the optical disc map. Optical disc map now already by the doctors, the optical disc is being segmented. The background is depicted as black and the foreground is depicted as white. So this is what is the ground truth. So here the supervised learning, what should be done now? All these pixels will be learnt as the background. Suppose you come for this pixel now, it should be learnt as an optical disc. Likewise, optical cup ground truth is also given. So what we need to do in this type of task now, we have to train with 50 images. Each pixel is learned. Likewise, that is why the number of images given here are very less, even for deep learning task. But here, if you go, it takes each image as a single entity. That's why we need 35,000 and odd images. But here, if you see, each pixel is taken as a single entity. It has to be learned with respect to its label. That's why it is a segmentation task. Each pixel will be taken as a single entity. That's why the database is very limited, and it is very difficult also to generate the ground truth. So for example, if you see here, each class we can take and put it in a separate folder. Of course, this is also difficult, but this is comparatively more difficult to generate the database like this. Okay. So likewise, when I told you, as I told you, database is the first thing to bother when you go for a machine learning or deep learning project. Okay. And when we need to learn on some Python libraries. What are the Python libraries? Basic Python libraries to do some machine learning project. NumPy. So NumPy deals with all the vector and matrix operations, just like you do in MATLAB, because MATLAB is a paid software. Python is a free tool. So for that, what we need to do is for every operation, almost for every operation, you need to call the corresponding libraries. NumPy is a library that is useful for array and vector and matrix operations. 1-dimensional array, 2-dimensional array. We call this typically as a matrix or a 3-dimensional array. So these operations will be done by the NumPy array or pandas. Pandas also similar to NumPy. That is useful for data manipulation, importing, and analyzing the data. So these are the libraries. NumPy and pandas almost doing similar tasks. And Keras and TensorFlow are machine learning libraries. Okay, that are used for data pre-processing. So I told the image has to be enhanced, the histogram equalized. So all those pre-processing tasks and converting the image to integer tensors. What do you mean by the integer tensors? When you are going for the fully connected layer, it is not going to learn as the image itself. It is going to learn the values in patches, different values. So that has to be converted to tensors. Tensors in the sense some values as a vector, as a matrix. Images to integer tensors, and to build a model, train and evaluate a model. A deep learning model you can build, train and test. That is what is a Keras machine learning library is doing. Similarly, TensorFlow also similar to Keras only. Build, train and evaluate a model. It is developed by Google Brain, and more complex networks can be built with the TensorFlow compared to Keras. And OpenCV is an image processing library. Simply the CV stands for computer vision. Computer vision is the other end of image processing. Open source computer vision library developed by Intel. It is developed by Intel. Other image processing libraries also is there. Python imaging library is there. It is a popular image processing library for handling and transforming image files. So these are the several libraries you need to know before going for a image processing plus machine learning or deep learning task in Python. Okay. And what are all the tools you need to install means Python and Anaconda you need to install. You will get Jupyter Notebook. When you install Anaconda, you get a Jupyter Notebook for executing the Python codes. Okay. And also you need to separately install Keras, TensorFlow, and OpenCV for doing the machine learning task. Otherwise, the simplest procedure will be install Python and have a user in the Google Colab. What is it? Google Colab. Google Colab is giving cloud server for running the deep learning projects. So deep learning projects require more computation space for handling the input, and also more computations for convolutions and max pooling also. So the Google's cloud servers are giving that cloud space. You can leverage the power of Google hardware, including GPUs and TPUs. So when you are connecting to Google Colab, you are connected to graphical processing units, unless CPUs, not only CPUs. CPUs are able to handle only less data. So with a very simple configuration of my laptop, I'm able to handle with 35,000 images. That is possible only because of the Google Colab. Okay, otherwise it is not possible. In our laptops, we can read only 100 or 200 images and extract some features. You want to go for suddenly to 50,000 images, 60,000 images, now you need to get some cloud space that is given by the Google Colab, regardless of the power of your machine. And today, having learnt all this, to have some completeness, we'll see some projects. CNN used for classification using MNIST dataset. So as I told you, MNIST is like ABCD. We'll see that ABCD what it is. And one more project for image segmentation. The second project for image segmentation, and how that CNN looks like, and how that segmentation is being accomplished. So I think another 10 minutes for MNIST and another 10 minutes for the segmentation, that will be okay. So if you listen to this also, the learning can be somewhat complete. I think still you are able to see my screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Manju madam, another 10 minutes for MNIST and another 10 minutes for this optical disc and cut segmentation. Otherwise, if you insist on the first code itself, we wind up as per your comfort.
Yes, sir. You carry on, sir. You can take the coding part so that they'll be easy for them to understand.
Okay. So what we do in the Python coding, so this code you can get anywhere in the internet. So this is for MNIST classification task. As we already know, what is a MNIST dataset? MNIST dataset is the simplest dataset, having some 70,000 images, 70,000 images of handwritten characters. So if you want me to write one, different people will write one. But ultimately, the algorithm should read it as one. It should not read different people's one as differently. Okay. So likewise, several people have written, and that are taken as a database. The simplicity of this database is this is offered by the Keras library itself for testing the algorithms developed in Keras. Okay. So that's what we are going to see today. So we are importing the necessary libraries. So NumPy is used for matrix and vector operations. From Keras datasets, we are importing NumPy, and this is done on Google Colab. So the Google Colab, in the sense, you have to generate your user in the Google Colab, so that your database stored in the Google Drive can be read here, and also computation space can be taken, and that is what is indicated here. Some RAM and disk is being spared by the Google Colab. So there is some licensed version also. If you want to do more projects, if you are starting a company and all, so then you have to pay for the Google Colab. As of now, this is free for limited version, for student version. From Keras.datasets, import MNIST. That is, I told the MNIST database is maintained by Keras itself. And then we are importing sequential model. What is a sequential model is nothing but here, if you see, the output goes to the next. Likewise, each output is having single input only. Suppose if we go for a functional API, this is called as a sequential API. Sequential API, in the sense, from the name sequential, you can understand. It is connected sequentially. All the layers are connected sequentially. Suppose for some high-end tasks, you are having some parallel layers, and decision is also integrated to a single layer. You are operating on parallel layers. That is said to be functional API. For such tasks, you have to import. Okay. So from Keras.model, importing dense layer. Dense layer is nothing but the fully connected layer. Otherwise, everything you need to import, because Python is a freeware. We need to import the appropriate libraries. Just like MATLAB, you cannot directly go and jump into the coding. And you are giving some NumPy for random seed generation, because weights has to be initiated initially randomly. That's why we are generating the NumPy random seed. And then we are giving the simple command called MNIST called load data. That loads the MNIST data set. We run the code also, it is going to take only very small time. Why? Because it's a simple task. So this step, what it is doing now, it is automatically segregating data set into X train, Y train, X test, Y test. Okay, you know what is by X train, Y train, X test, Y test. I recollect. So this is X train. The features you are taking for the input images for training phase and testing phase. That is your X train. Y train means the labels corresponding to the training images. Similarly, Y test means the labels corresponding to the testing images. So for the testing images also you take similar features. And what is Y predict means? Y predict is nothing but what your algorithm predicts. That is what you know about the X train, Y train and all. And coming back to our Google Colab, MNIST database is the simplest thing. We have automatically segregated 70,000 images are there in the MNIST, we told. All those 70,000 images are taken as some 50,000 images for training and 20,000 images for testing. By randomly I'm saying, and Y train is a label corresponding to X train and Y test is a label corresponding to X test. So if I run it, run the shape of numpy shape. So shape is one of the functionalities given by the numpy library. So you have to call it as numpy.shape of X train. It is showing 60,000. So 60,000 images, each of size 28 by 28. As we learned here, in the MNIST database, I have already shown 70,000 images of size 28 by 28. Then it is showing us 60,000 28 by 28. That means it has taken 60,000 images for training and 10,000 images for testing. Suppose I am interested to see the first image. What I should do? I should import some library called load image. For loading the image and plotting, I need to import libraries. As I told you appropriately, we need to import the libraries for everything. Okay. So out of the X train data, I'm interested to see the first image alone. So for that, I'm just running this code. So Python's indexing starts from 0. That's very important. Okay. So we told that 60,000 training images are there, isn't it? But if I put 60,000, it will show an error. So I will be thinking that 60,000 will show the last image. But it is saying index out of bounds. So index 60,000 is out of bounds. You may be thinking that 60,000 images are there. Then why it is not showing the last image? That means the indexing starts from 0 to 5999. So this is the last image. So you can visualize any image. You are going for the task properly. That is a MNIST database. Different numbers written by different people. They have generated the database for Keras library. And after that, we are doing some conventional machine learning tasks. Okay, we are reshaping it into NumPy. Number of pixels now. Explain of shape of 1, shape of 2 now. What is that shape? The shape is nothing but 28 by 28. So we are going to simply flatten the images. The images are not going to look two-dimensional anymore. So they are going to be flattened as 28 multiplied by 28. Okay. So that is what we are reshaping here. So ultimately now my X train became 60,000 multiplied by not by 60,000, each image not of size 28 by 28. Now it became 28 multiplied by 28. That means the images are being flattened. And after that, I multiply I divide each image by 255. That is to normalize the data. We usually do this in the machine learning or deep learning to have the data in the range of 0 to 1. Otherwise, now what happens? Some images may be in the range of 0 to 100. Some images may be in the range of 250 to 255. Different applications may be having. So this is the normalizing process. And after that, you are converting that X train, Y train, X test, Y test, sorry, not X train, Y train and Y test. Ultimately, the training images and the training labels and the testing labels. Y train and Y test are nothing but training labels. That is whether it belongs to class 1 or 2, whether it belongs to class 1 or 2. That is what is the image. Y train is the image and Y test is the corresponding label. We are converting that to categorical. What is by categorical? Na? Suppose I say this belongs to class 1. That means its value is not equal to 1. It is class is 1. That's what. So that it converts to categorical values. So shape of Y test also we are seeing. The shape of y-test is 10,000 images we are taking for testing, and there are 10 labels, okay, starting from 0 to 9. That's how we define the input, and we see the appropriation of the inputs in these lines. And afterwards, we define the model. So let us see what are all there in the models. When we looked for a convolutional neural network, we saw that convolution layer is there, max pool layer is there, dropout layer is there. And this being a very simple neural network, we are taking only the fully connected layer. Okay, out of all the layers, whatever we have studied, like this, we are taking only the fully connected layer because MNIST is a very small data set. So convolution and all is not required. So I'm taking the input image and directly taking to the fully connected layer. And this fully connected layer, what it does, dense means fully connected. So number of layers. First number of layers is equal to number of pixels. We can give any number, 1000 also we can give. But ultimately, the last fully connected layer should be equal to the number of classes. For here, I am categorizing 10 classes now. Num classes is nothing but 10 that I have defined already somewhere. Num class is equal to 10. We have already defined this somewhere. So that is what we are taking it here. Otherwise, it won't run. And after that, we are compiling the model. When you are compiling, you are going for loss functions. What is optimizer and what is a matrix? Matrix is nothing but the accuracy. You need to study about what is in the loss function and optimizer and all. We have now compiled the model, and then we can build the model. And after that, fitting the model. Fitting the model now. Now actually my model is getting trained with the inputs, X train, Y train. Validation data is the X test, Y test. So what happens during the learning now? The accuracy gets increased. So this is what is the beauty of deep learning. Okay, when you go for a deep learning task, the starting itself is more than 90% of accuracy. So there are different accuracy. The training accuracy and the validation accuracy. Validation accuracy is in fact very important. So validation accuracy is taken from the test data. Training accuracy is taken from the training data itself. Okay. So whatever questions I teach, from that questions itself I am asking exam. That is your training accuracy. From different data I am asking questions. From different inputs I am asking questions. That is your validation. So ultimately the learning is completed. Now the accuracy comes to 99% and 98%. So this is a simple MNIST classification task where we have seen all the modules like image input taking the input image, starting from loading the libraries and taking the database, reading the database and taking it as X train, Y train. The simplicity of this code is nothing but automatically it will be segregated into training data and testing data, where you have to suffer a lot. When you go download a database, save it in your drive, and then you read it, it is somewhat elaborate. Okay, so this is a simplest machine learning or deep learning task we have accomplished now. And if you are convinced with this project, you can go to the next one. That is CNN for classification. After that, we are going for CNNs for segmentation. What is it? CNNs for segmentation? I was taking the input image. Again, this is also supervised learning. In this supervised learning, what we are going to do now, I'm going to give this as the image and this as the label. That means my machine learning deep learning algorithm is going to learn. This is the optical disk corresponding to this. Each pixel is going to be learned with respect to its label. So if I take this particular pixel, it has to be learned as a background. For learning all those things, we are putting several convolution layers. Okay. So blue line means it is convolution layer. So all these layers are blue lines are convolution layers. Several convolution layers are taken, and these are called as the encoding layers, where the image size gets decreased. As an effect of convolution, you already know from your signal processing that after convolution, the image size or the signal size will get decreased. So the size is getting decreased. And in fact, you are putting max pooling also. Instead of max pooling, here they are putting batch normalization, which provides similar effects of max pooling. That means the size of the image is getting reduced into off. At every level, the size is getting reduced into off. And afterwards, what we need to do is, we need to double the image sizes at every layer of the decoder. So this is each layer of convolution layer, batch normalization layer, followed by max pooling. So max pooling reduces the size to off. Convolution layer reduces the size somewhat, 1 or 2 pixels it gets reduced, as you know from convolution. When you do the convolution of some 12 by 12 input, it gets reduced to 10 by 10 or 11 by 11. Likewise, convolution layer reduces the input size, max pooling offs it. Okay, so likewise, in the encoder layers, the size is getting reduced. As you know already what is by convolution layer, I am not explaining that here. So this is the encoder part of this particular CNN. After that, we have the decoder part of the CNN. So what it does now, it upsamples. So finally, if you are taking an image of size 512 by 512, finally whatever output I am getting, that should also be of size 512 by 512. For example, let me say this is my Y test. Y test is nothing but ground truth. Whatever is produced my algorithm, that is Y predict. So if I want to compare Y predict and Y test, that is what is the error calculation, isn't it? Y test and Y predict. Okay. That is what is the simplest thing we learned today. Y test. Y test is the ground truth. Ground truth is the last label I have shown. That is done by the doctors and shown as the ground truth. Okay, Y test. Y predict is your algorithm. So now what should I do? I should compare this Y test and Y predict so that error is there or not. So for that purpose, what I am saying is both should be of same size. Okay, so the algorithm is producing Y predict. Here I am having Y test. So this is the ground truth given by the doctor. Whatever my algorithm produces, each pixel is compared whether it is properly done or not, whether it is properly segmented or not. If it is properly segmented for each pixel, there is no error. If there is some error, particularly here and all, no error will be there. Why? Because these are very strongly, these are the background. And similarly, center also no error will be there. Where the error will occur now, around the borders. So doctors also may have ambiguity, whether this is optical disc or the background, this particular pixel if you take. Okay. So that is what is the next particular code you are going to see in Python. So this code I may not be able to run. Why? Because it takes lots of time, at least half an hour to run the code. I'm simply showing what are the important modules of this particular code and how the output is getting. Like this we can see. So we are importing the Google Colab and we are mounting the Google Drive. In Google Drive, so this is the line to mount the Google Drive. So I have to connect to my Google Drive. And in my Google Drive, I am storing both the images and the labels. Taken from which database now? Already you know the name of the database because that is very important. Without knowing the database, you cannot do an image processing project. So the first thing to bother. It is taken from the IIIT Hyderabad. You have to register here and then you have the liberty to download the database. 101 images are there with segmented ground truths and backgrounds. Okay. So upon registration, you can get. So others are free. Kaggle dataset is free. MNIST is free. And this is also free. Of course, they are also not asking any money, but you have to register with your email ID. So then you'll be able to download the images. I have downloaded and kept in my Google Drive. Images is my Google Drive. I'm having 101 images and their corresponding labels also. So I have saved these particular images in a folder called images folder. And the corresponding labels I have the folder called the labels. And that's what we have to call in the code also. Okay. So listing 1 is corresponding to the my drive images. Listing 2 I call the labels. Okay. So similarly, read the number of images. 101 images are there. As I told in the last code, we are importing the necessary libraries. So additionally, we are importing Globe. That is for some cloud computing. We are using Globe. And likewise, we are importing the required libraries. What are the different layers I'm using? For that, I'm importing the libraries. And what is the training path? Training images path, training optical disk path. Training images. So these are the training images that have to be trained with respect to these ground truths. So the X train, these are the Y train. Simply to say, X train and Y train I'm taking. Training images path, OD path. Still, I have not declared the X train and Y train. I have simply taken the path. Okay. And after that, the images, training images. So that lists the number of images here, different images and their file names. And similarly, I'm listing the paths also. I'm listing the masks also, the corresponding masks also. I'm reading and listing here. And after that, I'm checking. Okay, suppose you do some FM, frequency modulation experiment, you may not get the output. Afterwards, you directly connect the function generator to CRO and see that whether you have properly supplied the input, isn't it? Likewise, here it should not get that means it should not get mixed. This should not get mixed. The order should not change. So that I am confirming that if I am reading the 90th image, if I am reading the 90th image, the original image and the label are properly learnt, will be properly learnt by my CM. Now I am doing the tasks of giving the input image. When I am giving the input image, I have to confirm this. Okay, this image's label is this. This is optical disc, this optical disc. Suppose the optical disc is here, but it is shown here now. That means inside the folder some confusion has happened and you have to rework on it. Okay. And likewise, I told I will discuss the important steps now. So X-train and X-test. X-train is a training data. I told this database is having 101 images now. So first 90 images I am taking for training, and from 90th image to last. So this is a coding style. 90 is to, if I put 90th to last image, it will take for testing. As usual, I am normalizing because the highest gray level of an image will be 255. So I am dividing by 255. And I am defining the encoder and the decoders, as I told in this particular diagram. So this is the encoder and this is the decoder. The encoder is going to have some convolution layers, batch normalization layer, where the size of the image is going to get reduced. Okay, I'm defining the encoder as a defined function, and I'm defining the decoder as a defined function, where within the NC, there are three convolution layers and max pooling layers I'm using. So instead of max pooling, in this project, they have used batch normalization, I told you. So this is the definition for encoder and decoder. After that, I'm calling those encoders and decoders. So this much explanation may not be prepared for you. And I'm seeing the model shape, how my model is there. After each convolution layer, the input size is taken as 512 to 768. 512 rows and 768 columns. And the three channels are there. 3 means RGB. After that, in the first layer, I'm using 16 convolution filters. And in the next layer, I'm using 32 convolution filters. And appropriately, the size of the image also gets reduced. And at every layer, I'm adding 16 more convolution filters. That means, here if you see, when I go for the next layer, the number of convolution filters I'm using in the convolution layer, I'm increasing. So that is a typical procedure conventionally followed for any CMS. Okay, likewise, we are doing that. And after that, we have to fit the model. We have defined the model here. After defining the model, fit the model. Fit the model with respect to X-train, Y-train. X-train are the images we have taken. And what is Y-train? Y-train are nothing but the corresponding label. So what happens is, this Drishti GS001 will be learned with respect to Drishti GS001 optical disc segmentation map. Similarly, second image. Likewise, for 200 iterations, we are running this particular model, training this particular model, taking a batch size of 16. So here we see only the training. Okay, the loss should get decreased at each iteration, and this is the training phase of your CME. Okay. After that, we go to the testing phase. We supply a new image and see how that is being segmented. Okay, this is the testing. Predictions is equal to model.predict of X test. So what is that X test? The entire images are divided into two. Maybe the first 80% is taken for testing. The remaining, the first 80% is taken for, the remaining are taken for testing. So those remaining images, which is not trained already, in some of the lines I told you, from first image to 90th image, we take for training, and from 90th image to the last image, we take for testing. So this is taken from the 90th to last image. That is a test data. Okay. Here I am not giving Y test. Why? Because I should not give Y test. Because based on the learning, whatever is done already, it should produce a feature map. Okay. Again, I should not give the feature map. So this is the ground truth or feature map we are seeing for the input images now. Okay. This is the ground truth or feature map we During the training phase only you feed it. The testing phase, what you simply do is you predict with the X test alone. During the training phase, we train with the X train and Y train, but during the testing phase, you give only the X test. The model should predict the output. Predictions is equal to model.predict of X test. X test means all the 10 images that are used for testing. And if I want to see my algorithm's output, that is producing the for image 10, okay, in the testing data set for the image 10, it is producing the output like this, somewhat distorted around the borders, okay. And this is the ground truth, okay. Ground truth now, what is there already in the database? The database is maintaining like this. My algorithm has maintained like this. The accuracy has to be calculated comparing pixel to pixel. So that is the calculation of accuracy, and we can see that the model predicts with almost 98% accuracy, okay. That is what is the beauty of the deep learning algorithm. So when you take a task, the accuracy will be automatically high. Why? Because we are training with more layers. More layers and more convolutional filters are taken. Suppose when you go and take this particular task in a machine learning algorithm, so the accuracy may be around some 80%. Then we have to strive a lot to improve the accuracy. But here